Welcome to the SmartKeys podcast. Right now, the smartwatch on your wrist might actually know you're heading straight for burnout before your manager even has a clue.
Yeah, it's kind of a wild concept, but we are looking at a massive shift in how companies handle the minds and bodies of their teams.
Right, effectively turning raw biometric data into a daily management tool. So today, we're doing a deep dive into a comprehensive guide by Felix Römer.
Exactly. And his guide really focuses on the rise of AI wellness coaches and how they're being used to support remote employee mental health.
Hmm.
The stakes driving this adoption are they're astronomical right now.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, remote work fundamentally rewired how we live and, crucially, how we actually seek help.
Yeah, the boundary between the office and the living room essentially dissolved overnight. So you have this massive portion of the workforce running on fumes, and they don't have those traditional office touch points to catch them.
And when you look at the macro environment outlined in the source data, it's a glaring wake-up call for any business leader. We're looking at an estimated 129 million Americans currently living with at least one major chronic disease. We're hitting record highs in cardiovascular disease, record highs in depression.
And, when you factor in the 25.6 million Americans who are uninsured, you just see this gaping hole in access to preventive care.
Right. And traditional touch points for employee health are just failing because they're entirely reactive. Like they wait for the individual to completely break down before offering a lifeline.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, let's unpack this because the way companies usually deal with this problem is through an employee assistance program, an EAP.
Right, the standard corporate EAP.
Yeah, and traditional EAPs are basically like going to the public library to find a medical book. You have to, realize you have a problem, actively seek out the building, find the right section, pull the book off the shelf, and then actually read it.
Yeah, it requires a massive amount of friction.
Exactly. But an AI wellness coach, on the other hand, is like having a digital sports therapist living right in your pocket. It's taking your daily step logs, your sleep data, your heart rate, and turning that raw biological data into real-time personalized advice.
And it does it exactly when you need it without you having to even ask.
Yes.
And that shift from a static library to an active pocket-sized therapist, that's really the core of Rumor's Guide. The question becomes how this technology actually bridges that gap.
Right. How do we extract the strategic insights here and turn a raw sensor stream on a modern professional's wrist into, well, actionable, measurable workplace wellness?
Because at first glance, it feels a little bit like magic, right?
It totally does. Like my watch detects I slept poorly, and suddenly my phone is suggesting a 5-minute breathing exercise specifically timed right before my 2 o'clock client presentation.
Yeah.
How does that leap from a biological signal to a calendar-aware intervention actually happen under the hood?
Well, it comes down to a highly orchestrated pipeline involving machine learning and natural language processing, or NLP. First, you have the common data feed systems like Apple Health or Google Fit.
Okay.
They're constantly pulling in your sleep stages, your activity levels, and this really crucial metric called heart rate variability, or HRV.
Now, we hear HRV thrown around a lot in fitness circles, but why is that specific metric so important to a corporate wellness coach?
So heart rate variability measures the tiny, tiny fluctuations in time between your individual heartbeats. It's basically a direct window into your autonomic nervous system.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. When you're relaxed and adaptable, the time between beats varies a lot. But when you're highly stressed, like stuck in fight or flight mode, your heartbeat becomes rigidly consistent. It's like a metronome.
That's fascinating. So the machine learning pipeline takes that raw telemetry, cross-references it with your daily digital check-ins, and spots the pattern of a stressed heart rate.
Exactly. But then the AI has to actually talk to you about it in a way that makes sense.
Right. A line graph isn't going to calm me down before a meeting.
Exactly. And that is where the natural language processing layer kicks in. It translates those complex data spikes into plain language plans. Instead of just showing you a confusing chart of your HRV and expecting you to interpret it, the NLP crafts a conversational nudge.
Got it.
It explains the mechanism of why a specific microaction makes sense for you in that exact moment. It maps a big abstract goal like reduce stress into a highly personalized microaction, like a 2-minute midday reset.
Okay, looking at the market, the landscape seems heavily fractured. Like you have companies focusing purely on software and behavior versus those building their entire coaching model around proprietary hardware.
Oh, absolutely. The market leaders definitely take different philosophical approaches here.
Like who?
Well, on the software and behavior side, you have platforms like Thrive AI Health. They blend open AI models with academic research from institutions like Stanford Medicine. They focus really heavily on what they call microsteps.
Microsteps, okay.
Yeah, the goal is hyper-personalization of daily habits, relying on behavioral science to build momentum. And then you have legacy digital health players like Lark Health and Noom.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of Noom.
Right, they're pivoting their massive data sets towards sustained behavior change and nutrition tracking specifically for employees.
But those rely mostly on the user interacting with the app or connecting third-party data, right? What about the hardware-native ecosystems?
The hardware-native platforms are arguably pushing the boundaries of continuous tracking the furthest. Aura Advisor is a prime example. Because Aura builds the biometric ring, they have just seamless access to the hardware data.
Makes sense.
But they also utilize a software feature called memories. The system actively recalls your past contextual data. So if you traveled across 3 time zones last week, or reported a high-stress project deadline last month, the system stores that context.
Oh, wow. So it feels less like a generic dashboard and more like an entity that actually remembers the narrative of your life.
Yeah, exactly. And the Op Coach takes another really unique angle with hardware. They utilize GPT-4 to interpret your physiological strain and recovery scores.
How does that work?
The differentiator there is the rapid conversational response style. You can essentially text the app, like, "Why am I so tired today?" And it will instantly correlate your heart's workload from the previous day with your current fatigue and give you a custom recovery protocol.
That is wild. And we also see platforms gamifying this data, right? Like,
Yeah.
Humanity gives you a biological age estimate based on your movement, which clearly targets a highly competitive personality type.
Yeah, and ONVY pairs recovery scores with rigid prescriptive daily targets.
But wait, let me stop you there. If the system is tracking everything from sleep to heart rate variability, doesn't this veer into Big Brother territory?
It's a huge concern, yeah.
Right. How do these tools gather all this biometric context without making employees feel surveilled, like they're just being spied on by the HR department?
What's fascinating here is how the underlying architecture of these modern systems is designed specifically to prevent that exact nightmare scenario. The defense against corporate surveillance relies heavily on a concept called edge computing.
Meaning the data stays on the device.
Exactly. Most of the sensitive number crunching happens right there on the physical microchip inside your phone or your wearable. The raw telemetry, every single heartbeat, every minute of restless sleep, it does not need to be packaged and shipped off to a central corporate cloud server.
Okay, that's a huge relief.
Yeah, the AI model runs locally to figure out what you need. Furthermore, when a system like Aura stores your contextual memories, it's using that data strictly to shape the tone and timing of its interaction style with you, the user. It is not compiling a psychological dossier to send to your manager.
But the employers is presumably paying for this software. They expect to see some kind of dashboard showing the return on their investment, right?
They do, but the aggregate reporting to HR relies on data abstraction. The individual identifiers are stripped away entirely. Yeah, so the HR director logs in and sees 30% of the Midwest sales team is showing biological signs of poor recovery this quarter. They do not see John in accounting only slept 4 hours last night and has a terrible heart rate variability.
Right, so the employer gets the population trend, but the employee keeps their privacy.
Exactly.
Okay, so the privacy is handled by edge computing and data abstraction. But algorithms aren't doctors. Raw data from a smartwatch is not a clinical lab test.
Far from it.
If a business is deploying this to thousands of people, we have to look at where the AI actually falls short.
Absolutely. The business case relies on knowing exactly what you're buying, limitations included. The core value of an AI wellness coach is scalable, cost-effective, between session support.
Filling the gaps.
Right. It fills the gaps in traditional care. If an employee sees a human therapist once every 2 weeks, the AI coach is there on day 4, day 7, and day 10. It keeps the behavioral momentum going and catches small issues before they snowball into a leave of absence.
Which protects productivity and ultimately lowers long-term healthcare claims.
Exactly.
But the hardware itself has massive blind spots, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah. Wrist devices are notoriously flawed depending on the specific activity. Most of them rely on photoplethysmography. Basically, they shine a tiny green LED light through your skin to eliminate your capillaries and measure the blood volume changing with every heartbeat.
Oh, wait, so it's just measuring the light bouncing back.
Yeah, which means if you are doing intense exercise that involves gripping, like lifting weights or rowing, your muscles contract, the watch shifts, and ambient light leaks in. So the sensor suddenly significantly underestimates your heart rate.
That's a pretty big flaw.
It is. And sleep staging is another major hurdle. Trying to determine if you're in deep sleep versus REM sleep, the phase where your brain consolidates memories and emotions, it is incredibly difficult to do accurately from the wrist.
So if an employee or an employer treats that consumer wearable data as flawless clinical gospel, they're going to make terrible health decisions.
Yes.
And beyond the physical hardware limitations, you have the AI software limits. Generative AI models face the risk of hallucination.
Right.
Like, if the system gets confused by a weird data input, it might confidently suggest a completely medical unsound coping mechanism. Plus, there is the empathy gap.
The empathy gap is huge.
Yeah, an automated system can generate the text, "I understand you are feeling overwhelmed by your workload," but it's just executing code. It simulates empathy. It cannot replace the actual human connection of feeling heard and validated by another living person.
Which is why these limitations dictate exactly how the system must be implemented. You cannot just deploy it and walk away.
Here's where it gets really interesting. We shouldn't think of an AI wellness coach as a digital doctor. We should think of it as a hospital triage system.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Right. In a busy emergency room, the triage nurse sits at the front desk. They figure out who needs the trauma surgeon immediately and who needs a couple of aspirin and a chair in the waiting room. The AI coach effectively handles the low-risk triage. It manages the microhabits and the daily maintenance. By automating the "you need a glass of water and a 5-minute walk" level of care at scale, a company suddenly frees up their actual human clinicians, their EAPs, and their human HR teams.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it underscores a golden rule in digital health integration. These automated tools should never, ever replace clinical judgment for severe depression, suicidal ideation, or acute mental health crises.
Never.
Right. The smartest business play is to use the AI for its massive low-cost reach while maintaining incredibly strict routing rules and service-level agreements, or SLAs.
So the system needs an escape hatch.
Precisely. If the app detects a severe risk signal, say an employee's check-ins report persistent major mood changes combined with weeks of degraded sleep data, that system must seamlessly escalate the user to a human provider without delay.
It has to know its limits.
Yeah, the AI needs the programmatic humility to step back and say, you need to talk to a professional, and here's a direct, friction-free link to connect with them right now.
Okay, so we see the clear business case for scalable support. And we know exactly where the safety boundaries need to be drawn around hardware flaws and clinical escalation.
Yeah.
But how does a company actually pull this off logistically? Because integrating a highly personalized biometric AI coach into a legacy IT and HR infrastructure sounds like an absolute nightmare waiting to happen.
It definitely can be. And that brings us to the implementation playbook Römer lays out. A company does not just buy 5,000 software licenses on a Tuesday and force the whole company to download the app on Wednesday.
That sounds like a recipe for disaster.
It is. The rollout has to start with a highly structured pilot design.
The guide is pretty strict on this timeline.
Right.
A 6 to 12-week pilot targeting a very specific cohort within the company.
Right.
You don't just pick a random group of employees. You pick a group with clear, identifiable stress drivers.
Yeah.
You might run the pilot with your supply chain logistics team dealing with massive Q4 pressure, or your shift workers whose circadian rhythms are constantly being disrupted by irregular hours.
Exactly. You pilot the software with them, and you define hard success metrics up front. You have to know what success looks like before you sign the big enterprise contract.
Like what?
Well, are you looking for a 20% weekly engagement rate? Are you measuring self-reported sleep improvement, or maybe a reduction in sick days?
And while designing that pilot, the finance team has to look really closely at the pricing structures and the total cost of ownership. Vendors usually offer per-user subscriptions or tiered feature bundles.
Yeah, and a flat per-user model is incredibly simple to budget for initially. But if the wellness program is wildly successful and the entire company adopts it, those per-user costs multiply rapidly.
That makes sense.
So tiered models allow a company to buy the core behavioral coaching features first and then hold off on the expensive advanced HR analytics dashboards until the pilot actually proves a return on investment.
And the vendor software license fee is just the beginning. The guide practically screams about hidden costs.
Oh.
A business has to budget for internal integration engineering, They have to pay for extensive legal reviews to ensure they aren't violating regional privacy laws. They have to invest in manager training so team leaders actually know how to champion the tool rather than fear it.
Exactly. It's not just an IT installation, it is an entire corporate change management initiative.
Right.
And the privacy and compliance aspect is often the make or break hurdle for enterprise rollout. If you're operating in the United States, your legal team has to determine if protected health information, or PHI, is flowing through this AI system.
And if it is?
If it is, that software vendor likely becomes a business associate under HIPAA, the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. That triggers a massive new level of regulatory compliance and liability.
Wow. But even if HIPAA doesn't apply directly to basic step counts, the security requirements still must be bulletproof.
Absolutely. You must demand SOC2 compliance from the vendor. SOC2 is basically an auditing standard that proves the company has strict, verified security protocols in place and doesn't leave employee data exposed on unprotected servers.
Crucial.
Yeah, you also need airtight encryption, clear data retention policies, meaning the data is securely deleted when an employee leaves the company, and absolutely transparent user consent forms.
So what does this all mean for the IT and HR teams? It sounds like we aren't just buying software, we're taking on a massive data governance project. How do they avoid getting bogged down in complex EHR integrations on day one?
This raises an important question regarding scope creep. The primary reason these implementations fail is that companies try to build the ultimate, all-knowing health ecosystem immediately.
Right, trying to boil the ocean.
Exactly. The strategic guidance here is to stick to the absolute basics first. Integrate only with Apple Health and Google Fit.
Just the consumer data feeds.
Exactly. I mean, those consumer feeds are the table stakes. They're relatively easy to connect, technically. And they provide more than enough raw data steps, sleep duration, basic heart rate trends to fuel the AI's personalized micro-nudges.
Keep it simple.
Yeah, you limit any deeper electronic health record or EHR integration entirely during the pilot. You only take on that massive technical lift later in phase 2 or 3 once the initial rollout succeeds, and you have hard data proving that deeper clinical integration is actually necessary. Keep the system of record clean, isolated, and simple at the start.
So you secure the easy wins with the low-friction data sources. You build trust with the employees so they actually see the personal value in the daily nudges. And you keep the governance team focused entirely on privacy boundaries and clinically safe escalation protocols.
It is entirely about balancing the sheer accessibility and scale of automated algorithms against their known physical and empathetic limitations.
Right.
If an organization keeps its goals centered strictly on stress reduction and lasting incremental habit change, they can sift through the vendor hype. They can build a well-being stack that actually moves the needle for both the individual's health and the business's bottom line.
As we wrap up this deep dive into the mechanics of AI coaching, it makes me think about where all this biometric tracking is inevitably heading.
Yeah, it's a big question.
We are talking about managing human biology to optimize workplace productivity. Today, it is just a helpful nudge on your phone to take a deep breath before a meeting. But where exactly is the line going to be drawn between personal wellness and corporate performance management?
It's definitely a blurred line.
Right. In the near future, as these systems get more integrated and autonomous, will your AI wellness coach have the agency to autonomously tell your boss you're too biologically stressed to take on a new project? Will your smartwatch be the one to set your out-of-office reply because your HRV dropped?
It is a wild frontier.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
And the groundwork and the privacy policies we lay today are going to dictate how that autonomous future plays out.
Absolutely. As the friction between biological data collection and daily knowledge work disappears, the ethical frameworks and the strict data boundaries we choose to adopt right now are exactly what will protect the human element in the corporate workplace.
A huge thank you to you, our listener, for tuning in to the SmartKeys podcast today. We know your time is valuable, and we really appreciate you spending it with us.
Yeah, thank you so much.
If you found this breakdown of biometric workplace trends valuable, hit that subscribe button right now so you don't miss our next deep dive into the technology shaping the future of work.
And we strongly encourage you to read Felix Römer's full guide for yourself. We covered the strategic high points and the technological mechanisms, but his article contains complete detailed feature checklists and an AI assistance overview that is absolutely essential if you're evaluating these vendors for your own organization.
You can find the link to the full article right down in the show notes. Go read it, get informed on the tools available to you, and we will see you next time. Keep your data safe and your micro habits strong.